2 men in suits and lead masks were found dead on a Brazilian hilltop with instructions to wait for the signal. There was a third man. He survived. His testimony is classified. I need you to sit with that for a moment. Not because it sounds impossible, but because every word of it is true. And the deeper you go into this case, the more you realize that the mystery isn't what killed these 2 men on that hillside in 1966. The mystery is what they were waiting for. What they believed was coming. And why, nearly 60 years later, the Brazilian government still won't let you read what the survivor told police. This is the case of the lead masks of Vintém Hill. And I promise you, by the end of this, you will not look at this story the same way again. Let's go back. August 20th, 1966. Niterói, Brazil, a city that sits across Guanabara Bay from Rio de Janeiro, connected by water and by the kind of humid, heavy air that clings to your skin and makes everything feel slightly closer than it should. Niterói is not a small town. It's a city of nearly 500,000 people. It has universities, theaters, shipyards. It is not the kind of place where you expect to find something that resists explanation for 6 decades. But at the top of Vintém Hill, Morro do Vintém, there is a clearing. It overlooks the city. On clear nights, you can see the lights of Rio across the bay. It's the kind of place teenagers go to be alone, where hikers sometimes wander on weekends. It's unremarkable. Or it was. On the afternoon of August 20th, a young boy, 18 years old, was flying a kite near the hilltop. This is important, he was flying a kite. He was not looking for anything. He was not investigating anything. He was a teenager on a Saturday, doing what teenagers do on hilltops in coastal Brazil. And then he found them. 2 men. Side by side. Lying on their backs in the tall grass, wearing formal suits, proper suits, the kind you'd wear to a business meeting or a funeral. Their shoes were clean. Their clothes were not torn or disturbed. They did not look like they had struggled. They did not look like they had been dragged. They looked, by every account, like 2 men who had simply laid down in the grass and stopped living. But that's not what made the boy run. What made the boy run were the masks. Each man was wearing a crude mask, an oval-shaped covering made of lead, the kind of lead you might use for soldering or shielding. The masks covered their eyes, tied around their heads with simple cloth strips. They weren't decorative. They weren't ceremonial in any way that was immediately recognizable. They were functional. They were designed to block something from reaching the eyes. Or to protect the eyes from something the men expected to see. Next to the bodies, police found a few items. A small notebook. A bottle of water. And 2 damp towels, towels that appeared to have been used recently, though no one could explain for what purpose. The notebook is where this case crosses from strange into something else entirely. Inside, in handwriting that was later confirmed to belong to one of the dead men, was a set of instructions. Not a suicide note. Not a farewell. Instructions. A sequence of steps, written in Portuguese, that read, and I'm going to give you the translation as precisely as the police transcription allows. 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules, after the effect, protect metals with lead masks. Wait for the signal, the agreed-upon signal, to appear. That's it. That's what was in the notebook. Ingest capsules. Protect yourself with the lead masks. Wait for the signal. That is the entire instruction set for whatever these 2 men believed they were doing on that hilltop. And whatever the signal was, whatever they were waiting for, it either came, or it didn't. And either way, they died. The boy who found them ran to get help, but because of the remote location and the difficulty of reaching the hilltop, police didn't arrive at the scene until the following day, August 21st. By then, the scene had been disturbed. People from the surrounding area had come to look. Some had touched the bodies. The chain of evidence was, from the very beginning, compromised. And this is where the first of many inexplicable problems with this case begins. The two men were quickly identified. Their names were Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana. Both were from Campos dos Goitacazes, a city about 180 miles north of Niterói. Both were in their early 30s. Both were married. Both had children. And both were electronic technicians, skilled workers who repaired televisions and radios for a living. They were not drifters. They were not drug users. They were not, by any account anyone has ever been able to produce, mentally ill. They were ordinary men with ordinary lives who, on August 17th, told their families they were traveling to São Paulo to buy supplies for their electronics repair shop. Specifically, they said they needed to purchase a used car and some electronic components. They did not go to São Paulo. The timeline police reconstructed goes like this. On August 17th, Manuel and Miguel left Campos dos Goitacazes by bus. They arrived in Niterói that same day, not São Paulo, which is in the opposite direction. Upon arriving, they made two purchases from a local shop, a bottle of water and a raincoat. The raincoat has never been explained. It did not rain on August 17th, 18th, 19th, or 20th. No raincoat was found at the scene. They were then seen at a local bar, where a waitress later told police that one of the men appeared very nervous and kept checking his watch. She remembered this specifically because he checked it so frequently that she thought he might be waiting for someone who was late. They left the bar in the early evening and were not seen alive again by anyone who came forward publicly. Their bodies were found 3 days later, on the afternoon of August 20th. Here are the 5 things that, to this day, nobody has been able to explain about the condition of the bodies, the scene, and the evidence. 1. The autopsies were inconclusive. No cause of death could be determined for either man. There were no signs of violence. No bullet wounds. No stab wounds. No ligature marks. No signs of asphyxiation. No indication of poisoning, but this requires an enormous asterisk, because by the time toxicology was performed, the bodies had been decomposing for days in the Brazilian summer heat. The organs were degraded. Any number of substances would have been undetectable by the forensic technology available in 1966. The notebook mentioned capsules. No capsules were found at the scene. Whatever they ingested, if they ingested anything, was gone. 2. The lead masks themselves. Lead is a specific choice. It's not something you make eye coverings out of on a whim. Lead is used for radiation shielding. It's used in medical settings to protect patients from X-rays. It's used in certain industrial applications to block electromagnetic radiation. In 1966, in Brazil, the most common civilian use for lead shielding was in television repair, which is exactly what Manuel and Miguel did for a living. They had access to lead. They knew what lead was used for. The masks were not random. They were intentional. They were made in advance. These men expected to need to shield their eyes from something. The question that has haunted this case for 58 years, is from what? 3. The notebook's instructions reference the signal, but never define what it is. The phrasing, "wait for the signal," implies that whatever they were expecting was something they'd been told about in advance, something agreed upon with at least one other party. You don't wait for a signal unless someone has told you there will be one. This was not improvisation. This was coordination. 4. No explanation has ever been offered for why 2 electronics technicians from a city 180 miles away would travel to this specific hilltop. They had no known connections in Niterói. They had no family there. They had no business there. They lied to their families about their destination. They chose this hilltop, or someone chose it for them. And whoever chose it chose a location that overlooks the city but is remote enough that 3 days passed before the bodies were found. 5. The towels. 2 damp towels were found near the bodies. They were not sweat-soaked. They appeared to have been deliberately wetted. One theory, never confirmed, was that the towels were intended to be placed over the men's faces, possibly in conjunction with the capsules, as a kind of inhalation mechanism. Another theory was that the towels were used to cool the lead masks, which would have become extremely hot against skin in the summer heat. A third theory is that the towels had nothing to do with anything and were simply there. But damp towels on a hilltop next to two dead men in lead masks don't feel like nothing. The police investigation in 1966 was, by most accounts, half-hearted. The case was strange. The officers assigned to it didn't know what to do with it. There was no obvious crime, no robbery, no assault, no clear motive for homicide. The men's valuables were untouched. Their wallets were in their pockets. The case was categorized, effectively, as unexplained death, and it began to gather dust. But the public did not let it go. The Brazilian press covered the case extensively, and very quickly, two competing narratives emerged. The first narrative was spiritual. Brazil in the 1960s was, and remains, a country with deep traditions of spiritualism, Afro-Brazilian religions, and syncretic practices that blend Catholicism with indigenous and African beliefs. The idea that these men were engaged in some kind of spiritual ritual, that the capsules were a sacrament, the masks a form of protection, the signal a divine or supernatural manifestation they were expecting to witness, gained enormous traction. Some pointed to a practice in certain spiritist groups where participants would ingest substances to induce trances, believing they could make contact with otherworldly beings. The lead masks, under this theory, were protection from the light or radiation of whatever entity they expected to appear. The second narrative was extraterrestrial. And before you dismiss this, I need you to understand the context. In the 1960s, the Niterói region was a hotspot for UFO sightings. Multiple residents reported unusual lights in the sky over Vintém Hill in the days surrounding the men's deaths. A woman named Gracinda Barbosa Coutinho de Souza, who lived near the base of the hill, told police and reporters that on the night of August 17, the night the men are believed to have ascended the hill, she saw a series of bright, flickering lights hovering above the hilltop. Other residents corroborated this. The lights were described as orange, pulsing, and silent. Now, I am not telling you that extraterrestrial contact killed these men. I am telling you that the people who lived near that hilltop, in that specific time period, reported anomalous aerial phenomena that coincided precisely with the timeline of two men ascending that hill with lead masks and instructions to wait for a signal. Whether those lights were military flares, atmospheric phenomena, aircraft, or something else entirely, they were reported. They are in the police files. They are part of this case. And for decades, those were the two lanes, spiritual ritual or UFO contact. The case became famous in Brazil and, eventually, internationally. It appeared in books about unexplained phenomena. It was featured in documentaries. It became one of those cases, like Dyatlov Pass, like the Somerton Man, that exists in a permanent state of irresolution, where the absence of evidence becomes its own kind of evidence, where the mystery feeds on itself. But something happened in 2024 that changed this case fundamentally. And this is where I need you to pay very, very close attention. In early 2024, a Brazilian investigative journalist, whose name I am deliberately withholding for reasons that will become clear, obtained access to declassified police files from the original 1966 investigation. These were not the files that had been publicly available for decades. These were supplementary files, investigative notes, witness interviews, and interdepartmental correspondence that had been held in a regional police archive and were released under Brazil's 2011 Access to Information Law, which mandated the declassification of documents older than 25 years unless they fell under specific national security exemptions. Most of these files contained mundane procedural information, chain of custody forms, administrative memos, that sort of thing. But buried in the supplementary witness interviews was a reference, a single reference, in a detective's handwritten notes, to a third individual. The notes indicated that a third man had been present on Vintém Hill with Manuel and Miguel. This third man had participated in the same preparations. He had traveled with them. He had been part of whatever they were doing. But at some point, the notes do not specify exactly when, this third man left the hilltop before the other two died. He descended the hill. He went home. And at some point in the days following the discovery of the bodies, he was located by police. He gave a statement. And here is the part that changes everything: that statement was taken, logged, and immediately sealed. The detective's notes reference it by a filing number. The filing number corresponds to a document that, when the journalist attempted to access it, was denied under Brazil's national security exemption, Article 23 of the Access to Information Law, which allows the Brazilian government to classify documents for up to 25 years if their release would compromise national security, and which can be renewed indefinitely by executive order. A witness statement from a civilian electronics technician about the death of two other civilian electronics technicians on a hilltop in 1966, classified under national security. I need to let that breathe for a moment because the implications are staggering. There are only a few reasons a civilian witness statement would be classified under national security. The first is that the statement contains information about military or intelligence operations. The second is that it implicates government personnel. The third is that it describes technology, phenomena, or activities that the government considers sensitive. There is no fourth reason. Those are the categories. A man describing a spiritual ritual does not get classified. A man describing a drug experience does not get classified. A man describing lights in the sky does not get classified, unless what he describes about those lights, or what he was told about those lights, or who told him about those lights, intersects with something the Brazilian government considers a matter of national security. The journalist published a report about the existence of the third man and the sealed statement. The report was covered by several Brazilian media outlets. The Brazilian government did not deny the existence of the third man or the sealed statement. It simply declined to comment, citing the classification. So let's talk about what we can piece together, because even without the sealed statement, the existence of the third man changes the geometry of this entire case. First, whatever happened on that hilltop was not a two-person event. It was at least a three-person event. This means there was a group. This means there was planning that involved coordination among at least three people. The notebook's instructions, the reference to the agreed-upon signal, now have a clearer context. These men were part of something organized. They had roles. They had a protocol. Second, the third man survived. This means that whatever killed Manuel and Miguel was not an environmental hazard that would have killed anyone present. It was not a gas leak, it was not a natural toxin in the air, it was not lightning. The third man was there and lived. Which means either he did not ingest the capsules, or he ingested them and they affected him differently, or something happened after he left that killed the other two. Third, he gave a statement. He told the police what happened. He told them what the capsules were. He told them what the signal was. He told them what they were doing on that hill. And someone with authority, decided that what he said could not be made public. Let me now walk you through the theories, not the surface-level theories you've read in Wikipedia summaries, but the theories that account for the 2024 revelation. Theory 1, Military Experimentation. In the 1960s, both the United States and the Soviet Union were conducting extensive research into psychoactive substances, electromagnetic weapons, and psychological warfare techniques. Brazil, under a military dictatorship from 1964 onward, had close ties to the U.S. military and intelligence establishment. The CIA's MKUltra program, which we now know involved the covert administration of LSD, mescaline, and other psychoactive compounds to unwitting subjects, had international reach. There are documented cases of MKUltra adjacent programs operating in allied nations. Under this theory, Manuel, Miguel, and the third man were either recruited or manipulated into participating in an experiment, possibly one involving psychoactive substances and sensory deprivation or protection from an electromagnetic source. The experiment went wrong. 2 of the 3 subjects died. The survivor was debriefed by police, and when the nature of what he described became clear, the statement was seized and classified to protect the military government from the revelation that it was conducting, or allowing foreign agencies to conduct, human experimentation on Brazilian soil. This theory accounts for the national security classification. It accounts for the capsules. It accounts for the lead masks. It accounts for the presence of a third man who survived. It does not account for the UFO sightings reported by local residents, unless those sightings were of military aircraft or technology being deployed as part of the experiment. Theory 2, Fringe Scientific Research. Manuel and Miguel were electronics technicians. They understood circuits, frequencies, and electromagnetic radiation. In the 1960s, there was a thriving subculture in Brazil, and globally, of amateur scientists and engineers who believed they could make contact with extraterrestrial intelligence using homemade equipment. Some of these groups were loosely organized. Some were more structured. Some overlapped with spiritist communities. Some were entirely secular. Under this theory, the three men were part of such a group. They had built or acquired equipment, possibly equipment that emitted or received electromagnetic signals. The lead masks were protection from radiation emitted by this equipment. The capsules were a psychoactive substance intended to heighten perception or induce a state receptive to contact. The signal was an expected transmission, either from a satellite, a military installation they believed was extraterrestrial, or a source they genuinely believed was non-human. The third man either lost his nerve, became ill from the capsule, or was designated as an observer who was not supposed to ingest the substance. When the other two died, possibly from an overdose of whatever the capsule contained, possibly from a cardiac event induced by the combination of the substance and the stress of the experience, the third man panicked and left. This theory accounts for most of the physical evidence. The national security classification, under this theory, would be explained if the men had inadvertently stumbled onto or interacted with an actual military frequency or installation, if whatever they were receiving was not extraterrestrial but classified military communications, and the survivor's statement revealed the existence of a signals intelligence operation the government wanted to protect. Theory 3, Cult Involvement. This is the theory that gains the most traction when you examine the broader pattern. Because Manuel and Miguel were not the only people in Brazil who died under these circumstances in this time period. In 1962, 4 years before the Vintém incident, a man named Hermes was found dead on a hilltop near the town of Campos dos Goitacazes, the same city where Manuel and Miguel lived. He was wearing a lead mask. He had a notebook with similar instructions. No cause of death was determined. In the years following the Vintém deaths, at least 2 other incidents were reported in the Brazilian press involving individuals found dead or unconscious in remote locations wearing crude lead shielding over their eyes, often with notebooks or written instructions nearby. This suggests a pattern. This suggests a group with a doctrine, a ritual, and a body count. Under this theory, the 3 men on Vintém were members of a cult or secret society that practiced a form of technologically inflected spiritualism. The ritual involved ingesting a substance, donning protective masks, and waiting for a manifestation, whether spiritual, extraterrestrial, or hallucinatory. The substance was dangerous. People died from it. The cult persisted despite the deaths because the believers attributed the deaths not to the substance but to the failure of the deceased to properly prepare or to the overwhelming power of whatever they were contacting. The third man survived because he was either the leader of the ritual, and therefore knew not to take the full dose, or because he was a newer member who was not yet trusted with the substance. His statement to police, under this theory, would have described the cult in detail, its membership, its beliefs, its practices. The national security classification would be explained if the cult had members in positions of political, military, or institutional power, members whose exposure would have embarrassed or destabilized the military government. Theory 4, and this is the one that I keep coming back to, the one that sits in the space between evidence and intuition, the one that I cannot prove but cannot dismiss. What if the third man's statement was classified not because it revealed something the government wanted to hide, but because it described something the government could not explain? What if the third man told police exactly what happened on that hilltop, told them what the capsules were, what the masks were for, what the signal was, and what he described was so far outside the framework of anything the investigators understood that the decision was made, at some institutional level, to simply seal the statement and walk away? Not because it was dangerous. Not because it was incriminating. But because it was inexplicable. Because putting it into the public record would have raised questions that no one in the Brazilian government in 1966 was prepared to answer. I realize how that sounds. But I want you to consider something. We have a witness statement that has been classified for 58 years. It has survived multiple administrations. It has survived the end of the military dictatorship. It has survived the transition to democracy. It has survived the passage of the Access to Information Law. Every 25 years, someone in the Brazilian government has reviewed this classification and renewed it. Someone has read that statement, or at least reviewed its classification, and decided, again, that it cannot be released. What could a civilian electronics technician have said in 1966 that is still considered a national security concern in 2024? Let me give you one more piece of this puzzle. One more thread that connects to something larger. In 2009, the Brazilian government created the Official Commission for the Study of Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, CEPUI, within the Brazilian Air Force. This commission was tasked with collecting and analyzing reports of unidentified aerial phenomena over Brazilian territory. As part of its work, the commission declassified thousands of pages of military reports documenting UFO sightings by Brazilian Air Force pilots, radar operators, and ground personnel dating back to the 1950s. Among the declassified files were multiple reports from the Niterói region, reports filed by military personnel describing anomalous aerial objects observed over and around Vintém Hill during the 1960s. The reports describe objects that hovered silently, emitted pulsing light, and did not correspond to any known military or civilian aircraft. I am not drawing a conclusion from this. I am telling you what is in the official Brazilian military record. I am telling you that the Brazilian Air Force documented anomalous aerial phenomena over the exact hilltop where two men died wearing lead masks while waiting for a signal, and that the survivors' account of what happened that night remains classified under national security. You can draw your own conclusion. Or you can sit, as I do, in the discomfort of not having one. Let me tell you about the families, because the families are the part of this story that gets lost, and they shouldn't be. Manuel Pereira da Cruz left behind a wife and 2 children. Miguel José Viana left behind a wife and 1 child. These were not wealthy families. They were working-class families in a small Brazilian city who lost their husbands and fathers under circumstances so bizarre that the press attention itself became a source of ongoing trauma. The wives were interviewed repeatedly. They were asked, over and over, if their husbands were involved in the occult, in fringe science, in cults, in drug use. They said no. They said their husbands were normal men who went to work, came home, played with their children, and watched television. But both wives acknowledged, when pressed, that their husbands had developed an interest, in the months before their deaths, in what they called scientific spiritualism. They attended meetings. They read books. They spoke about experiments. The wives did not know the details. The wives were not invited to participate. The wives understood only that their husbands were part of a group that believed it was possible to make contact with something, and that the group was preparing for an event. The wives were never told about the third man. As far as the public record showed until 2024, there were only 2 people on that hilltop. The families grieved. The case went cold. The wives eventually stopped giving interviews. The children grew up with a mystery in place of an explanation. And now, in 2024, we know there was someone else there. Someone who could have told the families what happened. Someone who did tell the police what happened. And the families were never told. I want to talk about what lead does, physically and symbolically, because I think it matters. Physically, lead is one of the densest common metals. It is soft, malleable, and extraordinarily effective at blocking radiation, gamma rays, X-rays, and certain forms of electromagnetic radiation pass through most materials but are absorbed by lead. This is why lead aprons are used in dental offices. This is why lead-lined containers are used to transport radioactive materials. This is why nuclear facilities use lead shielding. The men on Vintem Hill made masks out of lead and put them over their eyes. Their eyes specifically. Not their whole heads. Not their chests. Not their hands. Their eyes. They expected something that would affect the eyes, something bright enough, intense enough, or radiative enough that they believed lead was necessary protection. Symbolically, lead has a long history in alchemy and occult practice. In alchemical tradition, lead is the base metal, the starting point of transmutation, the heaviest and most earthbound of substances. It is associated with Saturn, with death, with the weight of the physical world. To shield yourself with lead is, in an alchemical reading, to anchor yourself to the material plane, to protect yourself from being consumed or transformed by whatever force you're encountering. I don't know if Manuel and Miguel were thinking in alchemical terms. I don't know if they understood lead as anything more than radiation shielding. But the fact that they were electronics technicians, men who worked with lead solder every day, who understood its properties intimately, tells me that their choice of material was deliberate and informed. They didn't use cardboard. They didn't use cloth. They used lead. And they shaped it to cover their eyes. Whatever they expected to see, they believed it could hurt them. Let me now address the skeptical interpretation, because it deserves to be addressed honestly and thoroughly. The skeptical interpretation goes like this: Manuel and Miguel were involved in a fringe group that practiced rituals involving psychoactive substances. They traveled to Vintem Hill to perform such a ritual. They ingested a substance, possibly a hallucinogen, possibly a cardiac stimulant, possibly something they'd mixed themselves, and they died from its effects. The lead masks, the notebook, the formal suits, all of these were elements of a ritual practice they'd adopted from their group. The signal was something they expected to hallucinate. The third man was a fellow participant who either didn't take the substance or took less of it and survived. His statement was classified not because of anything exotic but because it revealed the involvement of other, possibly prominent, individuals in the group, individuals the military government wanted to protect. This is a reasonable interpretation. It accounts for most of the evidence. It does not require any exotic or anomalous explanation. And it may be correct. But it has gaps. It does not fully account for why the classification has been maintained for 58 years, through multiple changes of government and political ideology. Brazil transitioned from military dictatorship to democracy in 1985. The individuals the military government might have wanted to protect in 1966 are, in many cases, dead. The political calculus that might have justified classification in 1966 does not obviously apply in 2024. It does not account for the aerial phenomena reported by multiple independent witnesses over Vintem Hill on the nights in question, phenomena that are documented not only in civilian reports but in Brazilian Air Force files. And it does not account for the pattern, the other deaths, in other locations, with the same elements, lead masks, notebooks, hilltops, capsules. If this were a single incident involving a single fringe group's ritual gone wrong, the pattern would not exist. But the pattern does exist. Which means either there was one group with multiple incidents, a group organized and persistent enough to survive the deaths of its members, or there were multiple groups, in different locations, independently converging on the same practice. Either possibility raises questions the skeptical interpretation does not fully answer. I want to end with a detail that I haven't seen discussed anywhere, a detail I found in the original Portuguese language police reports that were partially declassified in 2024. Among the items found near the bodies, in addition to the notebook, the water bottle, and the towels, was a small piece of paper, separate from the notebook, with a single line written on it. The line, translated from Portuguese, reads: "The second one will be stronger." That's all it says. The second one will be stronger. It was logged as evidence. It was catalogued. And then it was, apparently, forgotten, It does not appear in any of the major journalistic or investigative accounts of the case that I've been able to find. It is a footnote in a police inventory. But think about what it implies. The second one. The second what? The second dose. The second signal. The second attempt. The second contact. And, will be stronger than what? Than the first? Had they done this before? Had they been to this hilltop before, or a different hilltop, and experienced something that wasn't strong enough? Were they escalating? If this note is genuine, and it appears in the official police inventory with a catalog number and a description, then the Vin Hill incident was not the beginning of whatever these men were doing. It was a continuation. It was an escalation. They had tried before. And whatever they experienced the first time, it wasn't enough. They came back for more. They increased the dose, or the exposure, or the intensity. And this time, it killed them. But not the third man. The third man walked away. And here is the final thing I want you to consider. The journalist who uncovered the existence of the third man and the sealed statement in 2024 has stated publicly that he is continuing to pursue the case. He has filed formal appeals under Brazil's access to information law to have the statement declassified. Those appeals are currently working their way through the Brazilian legal system. There is a possibility, not a certainty, but a possibility, that within the next few years, we may finally learn what the third man told the police on that day in 1966. We may learn what the capsules were. We may learn what the signal was. We may learn what they saw, or what they thought they saw, on that hilltop overlooking Niterói. Or the classification will be renewed again, for another 25 years, and the statement will remain sealed until 2049, by which time the third man, if he is still alive, will be in his late 90s or early hundreds, and the truth will die with him if it hasn't already. Two men put on suits. They climbed a hill. They covered their eyes with lead. They swallowed capsules. They waited for something. And whatever it was, a hallucination, a military experiment, a cult ritual, a genuine anomalous phenomenon, it killed them. A third man was there. He lived. He talked. And someone decided that what he said was too dangerous to share. Vin Hill is still there. You can visit it. People do. They climb to the clearing where the bodies were found. Some go out of curiosity. Some go looking for answers. Some, according to local accounts, go at night and watch the sky. They say that occasionally, not often, but occasionally, there are lights over the hill. Flickering. Orange. Silent. I don't know what happened on Vin Hill in August of 1966. I've spent months with this case, and I am no closer to a definitive answer than the police were 58 years ago. But I know that two men are dead. I know that a third man survived. I know that his account exists, in a file, in an archive, behind a classification that has been maintained through 6 decades and multiple governments. And I know that someone, at some level of the Brazilian state, has decided, repeatedly, deliberately, across generations, that you are not allowed to know what he said. The question isn't what killed Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana. The question is what the third man saw that was so important it had to be hidden. And the question after that, the one that keeps me up at night, the one that I suspect will keep you up tonight, is this. If the signal came, if whatever they were waiting for actually appeared on that hilltop in 1966, then who, or what, sent it? What do you think really happened on Vin Hill? Was this a cult ritual gone wrong? A military experiment? An encounter with something we don't have a framework to explain? And what do you think the third man said that was so dangerous it had to be classified for 60 years? Leave your theory below. I want to hear it. Because I don't think any single person has the answer to this one. But maybe, together, we can get closer.